So, welcome to this Select Technology webinar, Windows 10 and what has it ever done for us? My name's Jig Mehta. I'm the Marketing Executive at Select Technology. Your presenter today is Nick Ellis, the Digital Transformation Consultant, who I'll pass you over to now.
Thanks, Jig, and welcome everybody. Very much everybody for joining. Thanks for making the time. What I want to do with this hour, and it may be less than an hour, depending on how quickly we crack through things and how many questions we get, is just go through some hidden treats. Some of them are a bit more obvious than others that are available in Windows 10. This is a dummy tenant, so we're looking at sort of non-existent data. It's connected to this demo tenant. It is Windows 10 2004 we're looking at, so it's got updated to the very latest version as of this morning. So you never quite know what's going to happen with a Windows update, but this is as modern as it gets. I've got a list of 13. Depending on time, we'll see what we get to. So some of these things are fairly well known already, but it's always worth just reminding yourself. So the most common thing that we do with Windows, the purpose of Windows, in fact, is using the graphical interface that it gives us, manipulating our windows around, moving them around, etc. A few things you can do with that. Firstly, docking. So it's quite familiar to anybody who's spent a lot of time digging around, but it's always worth a reminder. Docking. So as you drag a window around the screen, you'll see there it just clips into the sides, and then it offers you everything else you've got. What do you want on the other side of the screen? If you want to, you can zoom up the top, and that will expand it out so that it fills everything. So clip to the side, clip to the other side, and then dock to the top. You'll notice I've got quite a lot of windows open here, and you may be familiar with the shake action. So if I shake the window that I want to keep, it minimises everything else, just keeps that one there. One that actually seems to be a bit less well known is that in that state, if I shake it again, it brings them all back. It's a tiny weeny little thing, but I like it. So a shake to minimise, another shake to bring them all back. We are going to get more sophisticated, I promise. In December, I think, certainly in the latter part of last year, Microsoft rolled out Snip and Sketch, which is a replacement for the old snipping tool. You may have used the snipping tool to capture an area of screen, all that sort of stuff. So Snip and Sketch has replaced that. Windows key Shift and S if you're in a hurry to get to it, as it says here. You can then take a snip. A few extra things that this has that the old snipping tool didn't have. One of them is the delay, so you can say I want to do the snip in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. I was counting time a bit too quickly there. You can just take that. It will wait. That's quite handy for when you want to, if you've got particular menus you want to drop down, or you want to do something very specific like that. It also comes with quite a bit more in the way of measurement tools, highlighting, drawing. That's hence the and sketch part. You can open previous sketches and open previous captures rather, and sketch onto them, save them down, and you've got a button here that will straight into your clipboard. So I'm trying to do two ones. So that button there that will save into a clipboard, and you've got things like crop as well, which we didn't used to have. It used to just be you had to get exactly the right thing, or you didn't Yeah, then you'd have to go back and do it again, and now you can crop and do all this sort of stuff. You've got colours and so on. So Snip and Sketch, it's quite a neat little tool. You can select shape as well. So you can do a free form. I'll have that bit. It will still convert it into a rectangular image to some degree, but you see it will do like that. Or you can select specific windows as well. So a window snip, okay, so which window do you want? Okay, I love that one. And then you can see. So it's just a rather more sophisticated bit of technology. So notifications control. Let's get into that. Notifications has always been a bugbear of every Windows user I've ever known, because Windows has a habit of sending the wrong notifications or the right notifications at the wrong time, or just generally bugging you with stuff. And you can get much more sophisticated with how you manage these now. Because this is a demo tenant, there's not a lot of options on here. But if you go this notifications panel down here, manage notifications, you'll notice that when I hovered over that, it says no new notifications, focus assist on. That is the default now. The reason focus assist, which you can get to here, is switched on is because I'm sharing my screen. So it's saying, okay, well, if I'm sharing the screen, then I'm not gonna put up messages from whatever. I'm just going to show you, as it says here, the absolute alarms. You can turn it off so that you get everything regardless. Priority only, so then you can start to set what constitutes a priority. So incoming calls, for example, qualify nearby sharing, etc. We're going to come on to nearby sharing. You might decide that your Xbox console companion is a priority. I'm not sure I would, but alarms only is the default setting. You can also set, so for example, if you leave your laptop on, you can say don't bug me with notifications between 11 PM and 7 AM. You can configure that, and the reason it's running now, which we just saw, is that one there, because I'm duplicating my display. So notifications and actions, we can also get into more sophisticated, so what is allowed to show notifications. You can control individual apps, both in terms of whether they can show notifications and also which type of notifications. So you've got banners and you've got the action center. So banners obviously is the pop-up stuff that we see down here, and then this is the action center. So you can be very, very sophisticated about what you want it to tell you, and when you want it to tell you, and in what circumstances you want it to tell you that. So again, just tell you that down there, manage notifications. You can get to it as well through the settings panel if you like. While we're in the action center, one thing that has come, I believe, in the December release as well, is event management. Now, you obviously need to connect to a calendar to do this, but once you select a day, you can say, okay, you can set yourself a reminder. That's going to go into the Outlook calendar, and then when I come there, so if you just need to drop something quickly into your Outlook calendar, you don't need to do the whole process now. You can just hit the clock down here, and so on. You would have seen there as well that there was a choice of calendars. So if you've got multiple accounts connected to a machine, you might have a home, like an Outlook.com account and your work account or whatever. You can connect multiple calendars to this and select. So if I do that and say lot of birthdays this week, and then you can see there's that drop-down list. If I had multiple ones in there, I could choose which calendar it was. I can also hit more details, get into calendar, and start to add more sophisticated information. So let's talk about Windows and number. So the Windows key on the keyboard, we're going to talk about that a few times, but unfortunately it's rather difficult to demonstrate in a webinar. You'll have to sort of slightly take my word for it, I'm afraid. But Windows number activates these icons here. So 1, 2, 3, I believe. I'm just going to check actually. Yes, so doesn't include that. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So if I and 10 is represented with the 0. So if I go Windows and 9, I should get the calculator. There you go. Windows and 8 is going to bring me Teams, which is going to cause confusion. So let's take that away. You get the idea. So it's a nice little shortcut for if you just want to access the stuff that's pinned to your taskbar. While we were looking at the calculator, I know this seems like a really silly thing because calculator has been part of Windows for as long as Windows has been Windows, really, and in fact probably longer. There was a calculator in DOS if you want to be really really nerdy about the history of these things. Generally, this is the view that people look at, the standard calculator, but we can do much more than that. In here, as well as having a scientific calculator that will allow us to do all the various, I confess my maths was not that great at school, so I'm not entirely certain what all of these are. Mod will return the fraction and not the integer. For example, there's programmer, so you can start doing hexadecimal and decimal and binary and what have you if you want to. If that's your bag. Date calculation is quite a cool function. So calculate difference between the 24th of April 2020 and the 24th of September. It's 5 months, which is 153 days. It's a function which is available in Excel, but if you haven't got Excel open, it's just you can get there a bit quicker. Also, I quite like these converters, partly because they're really useful. So a currency converter, it will it uses rates that it derives from the web. So you've got an update rates there. So if I want to say what's $100 in euros, it's 92. But I can change that to say Egyptian pounds, it's 1,570, or that's not the pound I meant. Where's the UK pound? Is it under UK? It is, which is odd because it's always referred to as the GB pound, but there you go. So you've got a currency converter there, update rates, which is always based on a web thing, so you don't have to manage the rates. But some of these are also a bit more fun. So you've got weight and mass. Choose to, if you want to do this, kilograms to metric tons, for example. So you've got, it's a bit of an easy one, isn't it? 1,002 kilograms is 2,209 pounds, and then down the bottom here it's going to give you rough calculations of what it is in various things, including on the weights one, it will tell you in elephants, which and then in footballs until you get down to nothing. And there's all of these, it will give you a range of different calculations, even beyond the ones that you've asked for. So 28 inches is 71.12 centimeters, but 3.81 hands, and nanometers, and so on and so forth. But you can see there it starts changing to jumbo jets, and so on. So the calculator does a lot more than your very basic, straightforward calculations, and offers it in various whimsical ways, which obviously somebody's out there programmed all of that. Now let's talk about the game bar. Now these are business focused webinars, so it's unlikely that you were expecting to be talking about gaming, and we're not really talking about gaming in the true sense. The game bar is quite useful because it allows you to record what's going on a screen on a specific window. So to access the game bar, I'm going to do Windows key and G on the keyboard, and that's going to bring this up. So there's all this gamer type stuff. It's all very Xboxy, as you can see. It's got a bit of performance stuff, which is very important to players of some high intensity games. But up here, there's this button, which is to start recording. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly pull this window, load that again, Windows and G. When I start that with there, after a second, you can see there it's loaded and it's now recording. It's also recording the sound, so that is recording the sound of my voice as well as everything else. And when I come to here, it's now recording what's happening on this. So if I go to ask a question, it's going to ask me to sign in, which I can't be bothered with that. So I'm going to say, okay, I'll go to the BBC, whatever, and then it will load that. Bleak. And then press stop, and that has gone into the videos, captures, and then here is a little video of that. So it's quite a useful thing if you want to just do some training, give some guidance. This is how you do this. This is in every Windows 10 machine in the world. If you just somebody says to you, how do I raise an account record on our CRM? How do I get finance to do an invoice? How do I, but whatever it might be, you can actually just do it yourself, do a little video of it, and then it goes into, as I say, goes to the videos, captures, produces it as an MP4, and you can happily go off and attach that to an email, or better still, upload it to your OneDrive or your SharePoint, and then people can watch that video themselves. Really useful. I think also very handy if you're logging a ticket. I would suggest if you're logging a ticket with a service desk, and you know, our service desk might well be very glad to receive a video of you saying, look, this is the problem I'm trying to describe. Windows G, start record, stop. Send them that. So anything where you need to show somebody else what's going on your screen, it's designed for gamers. Ignore all of that, it will work for business use as well. We're cracking through this, it's 20 past. So, projecting to this PC, I don't know if you've used wireless projectors. They're becoming more and more common, wireless projectors, and also casting to TVs and what have you. So you've got to have the device on the same network, and if I go to the project here, one of the options you will see is connect to a wireless display. If I go through that, there's also the option of project to this PC. So if you're maybe you're working from home and you've already got a Windows 10 machine, but you've got your own laptop and you wish you had another monitor, you can use the other Windows 10 machine as a second monitor for your own machine, or vice versa. So you can set Windows 10 to behave as if it is a wireless monitor for another Windows 10 or Windows 8.1, I believe, but I might have to check that. But certainly any Windows 10 machine can project to any other Windows 10 machine. Quite commonly used in conferences and large meetings. People switch around and you've got one person who's controlling the main screen. So I'll just go through that again very quickly. Project, and then the options in this: connect to a wireless display. If you actually click on that, you get to the, I think it's a slightly intuitive route, but you get to this, or slightly counterintuitive route rather, you get to this projecting to this PC. It's quite handy. I've used it quite a lot when working from home. Where was that? There it was. Cortana. Normally I would say hands up anybody who's ever used Cortana. This scenario doesn't really work for that. So down here is the lovely Cortana. Just cancel that, don't need that. So this is the default view now. It's changed slightly. So there's your conventional start menu, and then next to that you've got your Cortana view. Slightly changed in the last release this morning, and it's got some very quick bits and bobs that you can get to, like weather, like news, etc. So there's some very quick jumps that you can get to, and they're currently publishing some stuff around coronavirus and what have you. But you can also search very easily across your computer from here and across the web. So all this will be yours. Happens to be a song that I was listening to just before this started. I can just search for that because it's in my OneDrive. I can hit start. It's going to fire Groove Music because that's the default music player on Windows 10. I don't think anybody tends to stick with it, but you can use Groove. But you'll notice when I did that, as well as finding me the local file, of course, it's doing a web search as well. It's found the folder. So there's 5 folders that it thinks might be all this will be yours, and so on. If I go to the web search, it will bring me all those phrases, largely. There you go, there's the album, in fact, and so on. So I think the Cortana search for that is really quite useful. It's going to search all over the place and bring you information from all over the place. And then down here, the real Cortana stuff. I'd like to talk to you if you haven't just to start with. But okay, so the function of Cortana is not based exclusively on voice. You can use Cortana to give it text commands. He says. You can also build out additional functions by adding in things like you've got a notebook, and then once you're signed in, which inevitably it was just before the webinar, and it somehow managed to sign itself out. Once you're signed in, you can then add additional functionality like linking it to your Office 365 and so on, and you can type set me a reminder for 3 PM or etc. And frustratingly, so we'll make sure this all gets edited out of the recording. There's always one. In every webinar, there is always one thing that doesn't go the way it went when I rehearsed it immediately before. Cortana is changing quite a lot, it's worth noting. Microsoft once had this idea that it was going to be equivalent to Alexa or Siri, and it clearly is not. People don't use it for that, so they're now embedding it more into business functions. Which, because they're getting into the whole voice interaction piece. Now, one thing that, again, worked earlier, is Dictation. So you can dictate your text. So Windows and H, as you can see, you might need to go back and edit. So new line. If I start talking now about dictation for Windows, start talking now about dictation for Windows. It's not perfect. You're not going to rely on it to produce the customer-facing documents that you need, but it's very good for note-taking. It's very good for filling in quick search fields. It works anywhere. So if I change window here, click in that field, and say all these will be yours. Click slightly too early because idea, so it's going to anything that you any field where you can enter text, you do it into Excel sheets, you can do it in Word documents as you've seen, and any other fields like this. So I could just say, click on there, Pink Floyd. And away you go. Nightlight and active hours is another key area. We shouldn't really be working of an evening. We should be respecting our working hours, but you can set up ways of making it less damaging to your sleep patterns. So in the settings dialog, right, this isn't the fastest computer in the world, which is part of the problem. I can turn that on now, and in a second or two it will dim down. I'm not sure if that will work on the shared screen. But I can also schedule it to run either to take the sunset, but I'd have to turn on location settings to do that, which is easy enough to do. So I can either schedule it to go sunset to sunrise. It's going to have a little think about where I am in order to work out what sunset to sunrise is, or I can do set hours, as you saw, let's say from 9 till 7. What it does is it essentially takes out the blue light, or reduces the blue light, so you get the screen turns orange, gets a bit warmer, all that stuff. Lots of mobile phones do this as well now, where the screen removes the blue light as it gets darker to try and help us sleep more easily. You shouldn't really be looking at a screen before you go to bed, but we all do these days, to be honest. This is a good way of preventing that from interrupting your sleep pattern too much. The other element to look at is your active hours. Oh, that's Windows Update. Why have you done that? It wasn't the Windows Update. So active hours is, you can either specify this is when I work, 8 till 5, like is the default setting, or you can switch this on. What that will do is it will work out from your actual usage patterns, your actual behaviors with your computer when you are actually working. The reason you want it to know that is so that when your domain administrators, which may well be, hopefully are, Select Technology, say, right, we want you to do this upgrade, active hours will say, fine, but not just yet. We'll wait until I'm outside of my working hours, please. So it's about preventing interruption, keeping you working. I think it's a really good idea to switch this on, switch on the automatically adjust your active hours based on activity. So I thought this was going to be a shorter one. So done that one, done that one, done that one. Task view and virtual desktops. It's actually the last one on my list, so I want to give you some of your time back. Task view and virtual desktops. This is the task view here. This is a button that I've never seen anybody click, and every time I've mentioned it to people, they say, "What's that? I don't know what it is." So the button that looks like a film strip. It's nothing to do with animation. It's the task view, and what it does, it shows you very quickly, a bit like the old Alt and Tab or Windows and Tab, shows you very quickly everything that you've got running that you can get to. I have a feeling I might be cutting off the screen share with that, but it also allows a second desktop. So if you've got multiple things open and perhaps you're walking into a customer meeting or you're walking into a specific staff meeting where you don't want everything shown, you can have, so here is my presentation which is sitting in a virtual desktop, and I can just press the task view, come back to my other desktop. So here's the stuff I'm working on through the day. Oh, I'm going into my meeting, I'm going to switch over into this one. Obviously PowerPoint will do a certain amount of masking for you. A virtual desktop is a nice way of just sectionalizing things off. You can add 2 or 3 of those. I wouldn't go more than 3 because you start to confuse yourself. The other thing that the task view will do is it will give you your history. So as I scroll down, as well as telling me everything that it's got here, now as I said, this is a dummy tenant, so there's not a lot of examples in here, but it will actually show. So earlier today, you were working on this file, and back on the 16th, you were working on this file. Obviously, in a real world scenario, it has a lot more information. If you're using Microsoft Edge, and the new Microsoft Edge browser, by the way, I think is very good. I know that's a controversial thing to say. Microsoft Edge is good, but that's what this is. Very good tool. Very familiar to anybody who's used Chrome, the new version of Edge, because it is basically Chrome, but they've embedded, as Microsoft always do, bits of that into the operating system. And again, so that will have your, obviously not the stuff that anything you do in a private tab, it's not going to know that, but everything else will be, as you can see there, in your timeline, in your history. It takes just a second to load the history in, and as I say, this isn't the fastest machine in the world. So anything that, if you've got, what was that website? It's a bit like the history function in the browser, but it's actually embedded here in the Windows operating system. So that is the full list that I had. So I recommend that you get the new Windows Edge browser if you can. I would certainly suggest moving away from the old Edge browser because that was not great. It has to be said, but I would actually recommend moving away from Chrome towards it because it's a bit more embedded into the operating system and it's a bit smarter than Chrome. You may well want to say, I'm not sure I'm that keen on that because do I want all that information shared down into the operating system? That's a legitimate concern. I personally don't mind. I can see that other people might, but if you don't mind, Edge is a good browser. We talked about the task view, we talked about Snip and Sketch, notifications control. There's huge amounts of control that you can get to in here, and then if you can't find it in here, you can get into it through the all settings, and there's all sorts of things that you can get up to in here. I would definitely have a look around in there. Search in terms of finding your files. How you're specifying it, that's a key area. Your Microsoft account, are you searching across, for example, your SharePoint, your OneDrive, etc. So we talked about that. We've talked about the very simple, the arrow shake and all that stuff, which is always worth doing. And the Windows key, so let's just finish on a list of the most important Windows key items. So Windows and a number will open the corresponding entry on the taskbar, so 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. It seems to only work, I've tried this a couple of times, and it seems to only work with the numbers above the letters for some reason. Doesn't seem to like working with the numbers on the the number pad on the side if you've got one of those on your keyboard. Windows G brings up that game bar that we talked about, so you can record screens and what have you. Windows H allows you to dictate. Windows P gives you the sorry, there you go. It gives you the projection options, so are you using other screens and so on and so forth. Windows and full stop. If I just quickly load here, Windows and full stop brings up an emoji keyboard, if that's your thing, and so on and so forth, and also the symbol. So this is, for me, I think, a bit more useful. So you can get to symbols, you can get to things like degree C, degrees F. Ticks is a good one. There's usually a tick in here somewhere, and so on. So that was Windows and a full stop, Windows period if you're American. So those are the ones that I use the most: Windows P, Windows G, Windows H, Windows dot, Windows and the numbers. There is already on the Select website a blog post that Jig wrote that lists a lot more of the Windows keys. I would suggest having a look through that, find the ones that work for you. Everybody has slightly different things that, that they use most commonly. As I say, mine are P, G, H, number and dot. And I'm only 40 minutes in, and that's it for me. Jig?
Oh, that was actually excellent.
Yes, it was quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's gone through really quickly, actually. Really helpful. I'll tell my favourite one is Windows key D, show desktop.
Yes, actually, yes, and I miss Windows M actually, which I use a lot, which is minimise all and unminimise. But Windows M is basically the same as shake. It will minimise everything if everything isn't minimised. It will maximise everything if everything is minimised.
See, I do Windows D, and that does the show desktop, then brings everything back up as well.
They seem to be very similar functions then.
Yeah. Well, what works for you, really? That's one I've been using for a very long time.
Oh, the one I did miss is Windows L. Very important. Windows L. For everybody that spends their days going Control Alt Delete and then lock computer, which involves what, three fingers and then a mouse click. Windows L at the same time will just lock your computer as you walk away in one go. So that will save. I'll offer my apologies for the Cortana bit. I tested that immediately before this and it worked fine. But essentially, what happens with Cortana is you need to connect a Microsoft account to it, not your work or school account. Unfortunately, it has to be a personal Microsoft account. Once you've done that, you can then add your work account. And then you can do things like set me a reminder, send an invite, and you can either speak or you can type. You don't have to do the speaking part. But Cortana is changing quite a lot. It's been taken away. If anybody was using it on mobile, which I doubt, which is why it's being taken away. A couple of other things to consider. If you like the Windows 10 experience, and I do, not just because I'm paid to, I also use on Android, there's a thing called the Microsoft Launcher, which ties together various bits of Office 365 and presents them in a convenient and handy way on your Android mobile phone. Not available on iOS, I don't think, but I wouldn't know because I've only got Android. So the Microsoft Launcher, I think, is really good. And again, ties together your Cortana, your Office documents, your diary, etc. But it's more of an Office 365 than a Windows. Did anybody ask any questions?
No, I did ask. I did ask people. I think it's been fairly clear. It's fairly helpful. Of course, if anybody does have any questions or needs any support, we're always about. Our email addresses are on the screen. You can always grab us on LinkedIn if you want to. It's always that way. So, well, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you all later on.